Welcome to the third presentation on Butler's influential article entitled Performative Acts. And this is the third presentation, so we're going to look at the third part of the article entitled Feminist Theory. Now, in this part of her essay, Butler attempts to work through the implications of her theory. Let's recap where we've been. I started off in Year 9 science class, sitting with my legs folded in a manner that Peter and Mark in the row in front of me thought was effeminate. So they turned around and said, "Aha, Nick's gay," as a way of trying to tease me or insult me for not acting in a masculine way. In the 1980s, sitting with your legs folded was considered entirely effeminate and was not appropriate for a man, as they saw it, to be acting in this way. Now, Butler's take on this is Mark and Peter saw my behavior as not fulfilling the expectations of being a male. I have a male body in their consideration, but I'm acting in a female way. So, as Butler would put it, they see me as essentially a man, but putting on a female act. Now, Butler disagrees with the interpretation of Mark and Peter from Year 9 science class. Her understanding is, well, it's all just an act. That inner male that they see in me, the masculinity that was not coming through properly, does not exist. All there is bodies acting in certain ways that give the impression of a true gender, either male or female. Now, this pushes her into some very uncomfortable terrain. And to her credit, she's trying desperately to figure out what she can do with where the theory has taken her. Because it seems to her that it's not going to help feminists advance their struggle at all. Because she's saying there's no such thing as a real woman or a real man. All there is bodies doing certain performances, masculine performances or feminine performances. So this is a problem, as she sees it, for feminism. Why? Because in a sense, what she said is that women don't exist, or at least what you thought of as women does not exist anymore. And this doesn't seem to help the feminist cause. Because if there's no women to protect or advance, then there's no feminism. So Butler says, maybe my model can be used by different people for different ends, but it's not really a manifesto for feminists. And in some senses, she's right, because I believe that trans activists have used her idea to further their own cause of advancing trans rights. And I find this fascinating because, in a sense, you can see that the position of feminism that Butler is arguing against, a kind of classic 70s feminism, these days, in the 2020s in Australia, is kind of at odds with trans activism. There's a kind of debate between, let's say, old school feminists and trans activists. So she's in a difficult position. She's saying, well, maybe the women that feminists think that they are advancing the cause of don't really exist. So she says, well, it's not actually my job here to show feminists how to advance their cause anyway. And effectively, she's saying if feminists believe that there is a single woman that exists around the world, they're kidding themselves. All Butler sees is bodies performing in space according to certain gender and sexual ideals. She gives an example of what she sees as a problem. If I'm a feminist and I'm trying to advance the case of women, I say, oh, there's a glass ceiling for women. They can't proceed further up the corporate ladder because they're not assertive enough in the workplace. So we need to defend women against the patriarchy, again, that keeps them in the lower rungs of the office space or the workspace. What I'm kind of doing, according to Butler, is reinforcing this idea that A, there's a sex of women, and B, that they're weak and not assertive and need assistance. So what I'm doing in a way is, in Butler's perspective, further reinforcing the very ideas I'm supposed to be criticizing. It's further reinforcing the very system that I'm supposed to be dismantling. So it seems to me Butler's not entirely comfortable with where her theory has taken her, but in a true philosophical spirit that you have to at least respect for its thoroughgoing commitment to follow through with the ideas no matter where they take you. She's found herself in a position that doesn't, I think, sit too comfortably with her. And this is probably taking it too far, but I'll do it just for the sake of making the point clear. We'll go back for the final time to Year 9 science class. I'm sitting like this. Mark and Peter say, "Aha, Nick, you're gay." What they're doing is policing gender performance, that people with male bodies should perform a masculine role and female bodies should perform a feminine role. Now, in the same way, feminists have a sense of like a true body, a woman's body and a man's body. And they say, oh, well, patriarchy makes men behave in certain ways and women behave in certain ways, in a way that puts men at an advantage. But what Butler is saying, counter the feminists who I've just explained, what Butler is saying is, no, there is no male or female body to start with. What there are is acts, and acts that are historically determined. Acts that, for example, mean that a woman in early 2000s or late 1990s Indonesia, if she wants to give the impression of being pure and chaste, will sit side saddle on the motorbike of her boyfriend, or probably wouldn't be with a boyfriend, but in any case should sit side saddle, whereas the more racy woman will be sitting cuddling her boyfriend. This is a situation that occurs in, as I mentioned in presentation 2, that occurs in Indonesia in the early 2000s, late 1990s, but did not occur in Australia because it's a different situation. We could go on with horse riding and other examples that show us that the way our bodies act in space is historically determined, but at the same time, we do create this illusion of gender and sex. We create an illusion of gender and sex, and where Butler's theory, if it can be maintained, where Butler's theory is so powerful, is it gives us a sense that if we've created sex and gender in this way through our bodily acts, presumably we can create it another way. Presumably we don't need to be stuck to, for example, two genders. We don't need to say that women are feminine and men are strong, women are demure and men are assertive. So it's also, though she doesn't give herself that much credit, I think she should give herself more credit in this article, in this essay, because she expresses a different way of engaging and acting in the world. So in as much as Butler gives us a new way of thinking about gender and bodies in space, there is a kind of emancipatory, that is a way of freeing us from the structures of gender and sex as we experience it. I'm going to look at that more in the next presentation.